Welcome, everyone, to our November webinar on behalf of the Florida College Access Network. I'm Kimberly Krupa, and I oversee network development and engagement for FCAN, which means I get to work with a lot of you on this call today. And one of the things we're always talking about is data, being data-centered, data-informed, data-driven. Well, this webinar featuring our very special guest from the Central Florida Education Ecosystem Database is for you. Before we get started, just a couple housekeeping. We welcome your questions. This is all about learning together. So please, as we go, submit your questions to us at any time during the webinar. And we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. A lot of you also submitted questions when you registered, and we're going to do our best to get to those at the end of the call. Please share what you're learning on social media. You can see our handles here. We'd love to hear what's resonating with you. And we are being recorded. We'd love to send this out quickly. You'll get access to the recording, the slides, and also our key takeaways within the next few days. We might have some listeners today who are new to FCAN's work. And so just to give you a quick background on who FCAN is, we lead the collaborative movement to ensure every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. And our vision is to see a Florida working together where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. We center our work around 6 initiatives. And here I've just highlighted the one that's bringing us together today. We're convening around collaboration. And we are also committed to being and facilitating data-driven conversations. We're also basing our work on 7 conditions of success. And here I've also highlighted the effective use of data as key to our college access movement. So our featured presenters, I'm going to turn it over to you shortly. And I just wanted to tee this up a little bit by talking about how the path to college is filled with so many barriers and blind spots for too many Florida students. And too often, systems operate in silos. We see this in all of our communities without adequate data sharing between them. We see lack of coordination, lack of information sharing, and the results, which are huge missed opportunities to identify struggling students early, get them the comprehensive supports they need, and being research-based, because research shows that collaborative data-enabled intervention programs that we'll see today have tremendous power to improve outcomes. But it rarely happens, right? And we can thank barriers around privacy, outdated technology, turfism, lack of leadership. We're going to hear a lot of leadership stories today for that. But, you know, CFEED is going to teach us that it doesn't have to be that way. We're going to learn how this amazing analytics team leverages data to ensure no student falls through the cracks. And we're going to leave inspired by their breakthroughs, which prove that data sharing done right opens doors for students to succeed. So Diana, I am going to hand it over to you as the director of CFEED and let you kick us off with the presentation that you've been working so hard on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited to share our work and our findings with you. For today's agenda, we plan to share just a few of the large number of projects that the CFEED team has completed in the last few years. We'll be providing you a brief history of the CFEED project so you understand our unique structure. And we're going to delve into the life cycle of a CFEED project, but then we'll start to get into the meat of what CFEED can do as we look at some of our key K-12 findings, finishing up with several of our post-secondary findings. As Kimberly mentioned, my name's Diana Pinar, and I've been blessed to be with this project for several years, but what is CFEED? It sounds a little bit like food, right? Nope. CFEED, or the Central Florida Education Ecosystem Database project, is a collaborative data sharing project with Valencia College, University of Central Florida, the School District of Osceola County, and Orange County Public Schools. Sandy Shugart, who was our past Valencia College president, had the vision for this collaboration with 4 Central Florida institutions, but something like this had never been done before. This is brand new. The Helios Foundation stepped in to provide the funding to investigate the feasibility of the project by providing a grant that allowed the 4 institutions to determine how best to structure such an endeavor. And then once it was determined that it had potential, the Helios Foundation again provided a generous grant to fund the startup of the project, which allowed the CFEED team to be created, resulting in hiring the team of analysts and data specialists based at each institution. It also allowed us to set up the necessary architecture to house the data and to start to ingest data while curating that data so it could be used effectively in research. So as you can see from this timeline, it took several years from the time CFEED was imagined in 2016 to when the data was ready to be used in 2019. But now we've been able to complete over 200 projects, ultimately leading to institutional action and student intervention, which helps on the journey to student success. So just where does the CFEED data come from? Each of the institutions within our ecosystem share their student data, allowing the CFEED team to look for success trends across the data as we follow the students from institution to institution across their academic career. We have 15 years worth of student data from pre-K through university graduation, and this data across the student's entire academic journey can really provide powerful insights for each of our institutions. The data lives in a secure data lake housed within our Microsoft Azure cloud environment, and CFEED utilizes cutting-edge technology. We have several machine learning modules utilizing our Azure and Power BI technology. And today, we're going to focus on just a handful of the projects we have been focused upon at CFEED. I am now going to transition over to my colleague, Ashton Terry, who will discuss the CFEED project cycle.
Thank you, Diana, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Diana said, my name is Ashton Terry. I'm a senior manager housed within the School District of Osceola County, Florida. I'm so excited to be here this afternoon with you. In this section of the webinar, I'm going to address some commonly asked questions that our team receives, such as, what does a CFEED project cycle look like? Who can make a project request? And how do we manage our project load? So our team felt that it was important to describe a typical cycle of CFEED project completion. As Diana touched upon a few slides ago, several years of initial data and machine learning infrastructure was put in place during the beginning of CFEED, which now allows for speedy completion of most new projects. Through tools such as Microsoft Azure and Power BI, our data team is now able to constantly import and refresh the data to ensure accuracy in our reporting on a variety of educational and data analysis projects as requested by each of the institutions. So if you look at the start arrow at the top of the page, the cycle includes our team receiving the request in the beginning, and then we assign team members in various roles to complete the project. Then the project team will collaborate on what further data files or resources we might need to get started. And we will have along the way many virtual work sessions. Our team also comes together. We have teammates in Georgia, South Florida, all over the place. So we get together about once 1 week out of each month on site at Valencia for in-person collaboration. As we move on, when we have a project that is fully remote from start to finish, we have constant Zoom or Microsoft Teams meetings that we use along with collaborative tools such as Whiteboard, and we can go in and make comments in various documents we're working on so that we can give each other feedback while the work is in progress. I would say personally that one of the biggest reasons I love being a part of the CFEED team is there really are no egos. You know, all ideas are listened to, and the best ones are truly brought out for the betterment of each project. Teamwork really does make the dream work. And because we have such a solid data infrastructure system in place that is consistently being refreshed, sometimes we're able to draw from a prior project to handle requests on a report that just needs to be updated. So we keep a log of what we call our parent projects that we can quickly reference and pull certain resources from, which in some cases can speed up the completion time of the new project. As the projects are being fine-tuned and moving towards that final review stage, we have an amazing design and communications team that handles things like presentation formatting, data quality assurance, down to just checking for any spelling or grammatical errors, et cetera. Only after this meticulous cycle has been completed will we get through that checkered flag and deliver the project. And then we'll work to have follow-up meetings with the partner team members that requested the project, ensure that they have any questions answered and that they are satisfied with the report and that their expectations were met. And this will allow them to take the next steps on their end to help their students. So now that you know all the details behind the specific work that could go into a project from the CFEED team, you might be wondering who can request a project. Well, the answer is pretty much anyone. We don't only want to help Osceola School District, Orange County Public Schools, Valencia College, and UCF in their decision-making processes. We also truly aim to provide quality insight that could help other educational institutions around the state. So in addition to flying the Florida College Access Network flag today, and we're so grateful for this opportunity to share with everyone, we also frequently collaborate with the amazing team at the Helios Education Foundation. We've also been on the road a lot, presenting our findings at conferences such as the Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities Transfer Summit, the Florida Association of Management Information Systems Conference, otherwise known as FAMOUS, the Florida Banner User Group Conference, and we even this past September hosted our very first CFEED Summit, and we had representatives from all 4 partnering institutions and Helios that were able to join us. We even had a video from the president of UCF, Dr. Cartwright, to launch our conference. So CFEED's a big deal, and it really is gaining a lot of attention because it's going to help a lot of students. I'm a former school principal, and I've always said loud and proud that we all need to do what's best for kids. So CFEED is working to not only support the evolving needs of all of these different educational institutions, but really to spread the word about what we're doing with the purpose of just helping more students be impacted by these positive data-driven institutional changes. So now that we've been able to give you some background and share kind of the purpose and the methods to the madness behind the Central Florida Education Ecosystem Database, I'm going to shift gears and look at some specific findings on the K-12 education side. Over the past several years, the CFEED team has compiled data from hundreds of thousands of students who attend school in Osceola and Orange County, right in the heart of Central Florida. And as we've done this work, we've discovered several important findings regarding middle school acceleration, dual enrollment readiness, and chronic absenteeism. When you look at the progression of students from pre-K through high school and then moving on to college and university programs, school, district, and organizational leaders can use CFEED's insight to analyze the student journey starting in the early years. There are several checkpoints that we have measured along a student's path, such as taking accelerated courses in middle and high school, bumping up the rigor through opportunities such as dual enrollment, graduating high school, and then matriculation. Our team has provided information that decision makers can rely on to support students as they navigate through this journey so that more students can achieve the ultimate goal of moving into the workforce and impacting society in many positive ways. In recent years, our team made a significant discovery surrounding the impacts of middle school acceleration as a launch point for academic milestones to be achieved. Did you know that 4 in every 5 students from our Central Florida ecosystem who have graduated high school and then matriculated directly to the 4-year University of Central Florida took at least one high school level course while they were in middle school? That's right. Over 80% of students who end up at UCF after graduating high school took at least one high school level course during grades 6, 7, or 8. So this trend suggests that middle school acceleration is a requirement essentially for competitive entry schools. Along with the overall finding that middle school acceleration is a key milestone along the student journey, we have noticed that there is a gap in participation regarding student ethnicity. Approximately only 25% of Black and Hispanic students are accelerated in middle school, while students of Asian, white, or other ethnicity are all over 50% participation within their respective subgroup. Momentarily, we will be showing you some of the other interactive tools that we possess at CFEED that is helping schools identify these types of students within each ethnicity or other subgroups who are demonstrating readiness to participate in these types of acceleration opportunities. Moving on to high school, CFEED has created a system of tiered levels of high school courses. We call Tier 1 courses those that are advanced coursework within the core subjects of language arts, math, science, and social studies. Through years of research, the CFEED team has determined that if a student has taken approximately 5 Tier 1 courses, which would include honors, advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or ACE, and completed these courses with approximately a 3.0 GPA in these courses, they would be academically ready to handle the rigors of college coursework. In trying to describe this information in a way that makes it easy to communicate with our partnering school districts, CFEED identified 4 levels of post-secondary readiness. As shown from a sample group of students at the bottom table in the slide, students on the expected or probable readiness levels generally attempt more Tier 1 accelerated courses and achieve higher grades in those courses than students in the approaching or beginning groups. If you look at the probable and the approaching, those gray boxes, you can see that in this group of students, probable students attempted almost 700 advanced courses and they got exactly a B average. And then approaching took fewer courses and they had slightly lower than a C average in those courses. Therefore, we consider expected or probable level students to be ready for post-secondary, while the approaching and beginning students are not yet ready. And we say not yet because we're here to believe in all of our students, and this is the type of information we can get to a school and help them identify students who are ready for the next push of rigor or just need a little bit more of a bump to get them to that readiness level that they need to get to. Moving on to dual enrollment, since dual enrollment is a form of post-secondary coursework, by identifying students even as early as 9th or 10th grade who have started taking these high school advanced courses and being successful in them, the window opens for the possibility of DE for those students. Of a CFEED cohort of seniors who were expected to graduate this past school year in 2023, we identified 1,358 students within our 2 school districts who had taken dual enrollment courses. Of those students, 1,347, which is 99.2% of them, already had the CFEED expected or probable readiness level attached to them. So in other words, our system is spot on. So imagine a world where we could just use that CFEED seal of approval for readiness without making so many students jump through, certain hoops like entry testing or all the other things that sometimes stop kids from wanting to go to dual enrollment. Since this group of 1,358 kids represented only about 15% of all students who were actually ready for dual enrollment, we see the potential that there are thousands of more students who could start dual enrollment. They have the academic background and success record to do so, but for whatever reason, they haven't done it yet. So a lot of opportunity here. Equipped with this type of research on academic achievement through those 4 post-secondary readiness levels that we've created, we've been able to combine that information into other project requests. For example, earlier this year, the Helios Education Foundation asked us to conduct a Central Florida research study similar to one that they had done in the state of Arizona on chronic absenteeism. Our results compared very closely to Arizona's study, showing that chronic absenteeism had started to increase even before COVID and has impacted all groups of students regardless of socioeconomic status, disability, or ethnicity subgroup. If you look at the table at the top of the page, it shows cohorts of students who were in grade 12 expected to graduate in the years 2017 to 2022. We found that the percentage of students who missed at least 10 days of school in 4 or more different school years during their K-12 academic career had increased from 23% in the 2017 group to 33% in 2022. To state this another way, 1/3 of the high school seniors in our CFEED ecosystem have been repetitively chronically absent, and that number has been growing. So we took this research a step further, and then we compared the repetitively chronically absence measure based on a student's expected post-secondary readiness level. If you focus your attention to the bottom of the screen where you see the bar graph, approximately 25% of students who were in those expected or probable readiness groups, meaning that they had taken a variety of accelerated courses and succeeded in them by the end of their high school career, their expected, their chronically absent percentage was about 25%. Then if you shift over to the purple and salmon, you'll see that in those approaching and beginning groups, the students that were not yet ready for post-secondary coursework, it basically doubles to about half of those students have been repetitively chronically absent. Again, that means they'd missed at least 10 days of school and at least 4 different years of their K-12 academic career. I'm sure that everyone on this call today, and we're so glad you're with us, has seen hundreds of PowerPoints throughout their career. So in a moment is going to give you the first of 2 opportunities during this webinar where we're going to let the slide deck breathe for a moment and give you all of a peek at an interactive dashboard that we use to supply information to our partners. What you are looking at right now is an example of our CFEED dual enrollment readiness interactive dashboard. With this tool, school and district leaders can identify specific students at each level of readiness within 4 quadrants. You'll notice that this is a quick way to identify hundreds of students who are ready for acceleration via dual enrollment or advanced placement opportunities, but have yet to take advantage of such courses. So now my colleague Michael Hoyle is going to take over and drive through some cool components of this dashboard. Michael?
Thank you, Ashton. Let's see here. Did we get to our screen? I think we did. Excellent. All right. Well, I do have to move my Zoom screen out of my way so we can work through here. So we're starting on a slightly different slide here, or a different area, where we're looking at historical graduation rates for students. And what I want to highlight here in our last group of students in the 22 graduating class is the separation between those that we have identified as being expected or probable to be successful. You notice it is close to or just over 60%, 62% of those students. What we see is only about 41% of those students really matriculating into the ecosystem post-secondary institutions. So like we have seen in the prior slides, we know that there's a big gap between readiness and participation. Now we're going to drill down into where we can help stimulate some more of that participation. So Ashton was talking about our ability to track where students are in their journey and identifying where they are ready and maybe where they're not participating. We're able to now focus in on student populations where we know we can take action. And in this specific population, we're looking at students that are entering or have entered their senior year. And we're able to focus in on students in Osceola or Orange County. And we're able to start to identify where students may or may not need support and also are ready or not ready for the levels of classes that they're taking. But one of those areas that we highlighted on that prior slide was that there is a large group of students that we know are not participating in acceleration like AP or dual enrollment when they demonstrate high levels of readiness. I'm going to focus in on one demographic, and I'm going to highlight just a student here that we know is probable to be ready. So this one student is in Wekiva High School in Orange County. And for this student, we talked about in prior slides about what it means to be post-secondary ready. What we'll see on this student is this student has taken that magic number, 4 advanced courses, and they've achieved higher than a 3.0. But their overall high school GPA is a 3.0. This is a great example of a student who is showing all of the markers of being ready, but not participating in the things that will actually open the doors to participating in post-secondary institutions. We know acceleration, like AP or dual enrollment, directly relates to their ability to matriculate. And without that participation, barriers emerge. And so while the students are still engaged in institutions, it represents an area where we can touch those students. I'll also draw a highlight to another student over in the upper right-hand corner, where they are participating in a lot of advanced courses. But we'll notice that they have a slightly different prediction category. And this is one of those students that may need a little bit more supports. And to Ashton's point, this isn't about reducing students' ability. It's identifying where do we need to give additional supports. So in this scenario, we're looking at a student that actually is demonstrating the need for a little bit more math support. If we look at how they've performed in Algebra 2 and geometry, and as well as AP Human Geography, it's a great example of saying, hey, let's find additional supports that we can give to this student. And what you'll see is that as we widen out, is that there is wide analysis on all of the students participating inside of the school districts. And so creating target awareness of how to address and connect with students gives power to each of the academic the education institutions. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Ashton to carry on with our next portion of our presentation.
All right, thank you, Michael. So we've scratched the surface of CFEED's post-secondary work that can impact a student in grades K to 12. But what about after they graduate high school and move on to Valencia College or UCF? In the final section of today's webinar, we will share some of our data analysis and research in the areas surrounding matriculation, including the Osceola Prosper program that has allowed over 5,000 Osceola County grads to attend free college just since 2022. We will also share some exciting returns of the Transfer Scholars program that CFEED has supported, and finish off with an exploration of how we are helping pave clear pathways for students getting ready to transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year program. In 2019, House Bill 7071, otherwise known as SAIL to 60, was established with the goal of increasing the percentage of working age Floridians with a post-secondary certificate, degree, or training experience to 60% by 2030. This has led to initiatives within school districts to increase their number of seniors who apply to college, apply to financial aid, and plan for their next steps in life well in advance of walking across that high school graduation stage. Despite the efforts of many school and government leaders since the implementation of SAIL to 60, we've recognized that a problem exists with matriculation into community colleges, which is a vital part of education for thousands of students across Central Florida and the entire state. Our analysis has found that matriculation rates were declining across the board at Valencia for several years. From 2017 through 2021, as you can see in the image on the left of your screen, there was a sharp decline in matriculation of Central Florida students to Valencia. From the efforts of collaboration between Valencia, Osceola County Commissioners, Osceola School District, Osceola Prosper was created to fix part of this matriculation gap, as well as to find a way for students to earn an associate's degree and move on to their next chapter in life with zero student loan debt. So beginning with the 2022 graduation class, any student in Osceola County who has graduated from a public, private, charter, or homeschool program is eligible to receive free college from either Valencia College or Osceola Technical College with no minimum test score or GPA requirements. I talked earlier about eliminating barriers and hoops. Pretty awesome when you don't have to deal with test scores or GPA to start your college career. And so this program has been very successful in part to that lack of friction a student has had to experience to take advantage of Osceola Prosper. As shown, there are just a few simple steps needed for a student to get started. Last month, the Osceola County Commission approved $8.3 million in funding to continue this program for the third cohort, those 2024 Osceola County High School graduates. And our research at CFEED has helped demonstrate the success of Osceola Prosper and is one of the reasons why leaders are determined to continue with that investment moving forward with the program. As shown a few moments ago, I described a noticeable matriculation decline for several years at Valencia College. As our team is starting to pull more data forward on the Osceola Prosper students who have matriculated to Valencia, we can see that of all students enrolled at Valencia in the 2023 academic year, well over half were Osceola Prosper students. That is a huge cause for celebration, but our research has also revealed some potential next steps surrounding ways that we need to help these Osceola Prosper students. On average, Osceola Prosper students going to Valencia experience over a half-point decrease in their grade point average in their first term compared to non-Osceola Prosper students. This is one factor that's causing a high level of attrition risk for more than 30% of that Osceola Prosper group. So it's evident that the Osceola Prosper students are needing more support to complete their AA or AS program at Valencia. At the time of the study, which I'm providing an example of here, we had identified 344 Osceola Prosper students with a high level of attrition risk. You may be wondering now, what is a specific type of intervention that we can provide for students who are coming into Valencia with a low level of post-secondary readiness? So here's a great example in front of you. Last year, our CFEED team completed a detailed report for Valencia, which showed that if a student does not take or successfully pass a math course during their first term, their likelihood of attrition can increase by 2 or 3 more times. As seen here, we had a group of almost 3,000 students at the approaching level, which you'll recall is not quite ready for post-secondary coursework, but now they're there, we gotta wrap our arms around them. The overall attrition rate of this group was 38%, but if you look at in the red colored bars at the top of that table, you'll see that if they passed a math course in their first term with either no repeat required or even had to repeat, but then they passed it, that number shrunk to 25% or less. We also found a very specific math course taken among these approaching level students at Valencia, statistical methods, and of 25 students who took the class, all but one successfully passed that course. So this is a real life example of how a counselor or a dean at Valencia College could wrap their arms around a student who may need help gaining traction as they begin that Valencia career and steer them towards a course with a solid track record of success, and then increase that student's likelihood of staying in school and graduating. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Diana, who's going to share a little bit more about our Transfer Scholars program.
Thank you, Ashton. So similar to the Osceola Prosper project, CFEED found many factors that impact students in the transfer process from Valencia College to UCF. And then as a result of many projects that CFEED shared with its partners at UCF, Valencia College, and the Helios Foundation, there are specific challenges that these organizations plan to focus on. So with a generous grant of $1.3 million provided by the Helios Foundation, UCF and Valencia have been able to focus on very specific challenges this grant was aimed to address. And you can see this is a very targeted and a very short grant. But the first challenge is currently many Valencia College students complete their AA degree requirements prior to completing the Common Program Prerequisites, the CPPs, for their intended major at UCF. So CFEED research indicates students will have a much higher success rate for those students who complete their required relevant courses at Valencia prior to transfer. This grant specifically targets this challenge by providing tuition support for Valencia students who need to complete these courses. Students receive $500 toward the completion of up to 3 courses at Valencia to complete the relevant courses aligned with their degree pathway. And as you can see so far, the grant has provided support for 101 students this semester to take those CPPs at Valencia prior to transferring to UCF. Additionally, there is a monetary incentive to students who transfer to UCF with all their CPPs completed for their intended major. That is $250 per student. For this past semester, 156 students were identified with the assistance of CFEED and were able to obtain that incentive for completing all their CPPs at Valencia before transferring to UCF. They are now at UCF in their intended major. The second identified challenge showed that students who studied part-time at Valencia will often enroll full-time at UCF in their first semester upon transfer, which often results in high levels of transfer shock and negative academic outcomes. This grant incentivized students to remain part-time during their first semester at UCF. They receive $500 per student. As you can see, 138 transfer students were provided the incentive and have remained part-time in their first semester this fall at UCF. Finally, the last challenge is that many Valencia College students transfer to UCF without having visited the university at all, and as a result find themselves navigating a new institutional culture and physical location all at once. So this grant also allowed the reprisal of the UCF campus fall and spring tour program, which has been dubbed Students Early Exploration C UCF program. The students are picked up at Valencia campuses by buses and brought to UCF for an immersive day, learning about the campuses and programs, and then they get to enjoy a fantastic lunch as well. You know, food always helps every event. This year, that event occurred October 13th, and there were 141 students who participated. And I'm going to turn it back over to Michael.
Awesome.
Diana, can I ask a question? Diana, could I just ask a quick question?
Of course.
Could you just say one more sentence about that transfer shock? I don't think I've ever heard it.
Actually, Michael's got
Yeah,
a
I'm actually going to
about
cover that
transfer.
here in just a moment. So earlier in our presentation, Ashton took us through problems that we found in data and a program that was created out of the data. Diana's now just taken us through a program that's been created, and I'm now going to take you through the data and findings that we actually found that drove the formation of the transfer grant program. So our first portion that we want to focus in on is we started our analysis with inside of CFEED, always looking at the student journey with the end in mind. And so when we look at transfer success, the end in mind and really trying to see how we can improve outcomes, what we investigated was finding the worst outcomes for transfer students as they move from Valencia to UCF. And as that happens, what we found is that there are specific UCF programs where we see higher rates of attrition. We'll call out business administration as well as arts and humanities as being the two top colleges where they see the highest rates of attrition. But what we know in the journey is we have to find things that are going to be earlier indicators so we can understand what may be causing or maybe early intervention points that we can help with students. So one of the things that we found with inside of CFEED was the concept of shock events. Shock events are things that happen with inside of the student's first experience, first term experience at UCF post-transfer. So there are 6 events that we've been able to have a measurable impact where we can actually quantifiably measure its impact and correlation to attrition. So these shock events are things like having a first term GPA where their cumulative GPA is 0.5% higher than their first term GPA, or the opposite way to say this would be their first term in UCF, they have a lower GPA by over 0.5 point than to their cumulative GPA. What we also find is that there are other circumstances, like enrolling full-time and then having to withdraw to where you fall under a full-time credit load. Another one is earning less than 6 credit hours in your first term. Another is withdrawing from your courses and then getting back to performance. is having an overall first term GPA lower than 2.5. So performance in your course load is extremely important. Ashton, would you mind going to the prior slide? I do want to highlight just a couple things. So the College of Business Administration, this is the college that receives the highest attrition, but it is also the college that has the highest shock event percentages. And there are several reasons that shock events occur that we've been able to identify. But we'll also highlight the Arts and Humanities College. And you'll notice that there is a high rate of attrition here, but there's a lower rate of shock events. So some of these students, what we've actually found in Arts and Humanities is a little bit of a counterintuitive finding where it's not just your ability to perform in your first semester once you show up, it's what you bring. And what we found in the Arts and Humanities students is that a large number of these students are not bringing college algebra, and they avoid taking it because it's one of the primary requirements for all of these degrees. And the students end up exiting. So what CFEED realized is that just shock events aren't the only things that we need to have. And so we identified those CPPs, or what are also known as the common program prerequisites, as not being in the student's progression. So Ashton, we can jump forward. Perfect. So what we've done is we've been able to combine not only our likelihood of shock predictions, but we've also looked at course taking patterns to really help us understand the readiness of students before they transfer. So when we look at students who are getting ready to transfer, what we have found in the fall of 2023, sorry, that did not roll off the tongue, only 18% of these students were fully ready for the selected program that they applied for when they transferred. So if we can better align student readiness, just like the program that we've described, have students stay behind in Valencia so they can take those extra courses, we can improve their likelihood of success. What we also can do is identify those scenarios of students where shock is highly likely to occur and encourage those students post-transfer to align to a major and also take an appropriate course load so that way they can be successful in their first term and achieve traction and momentum. We'll go to the next slide, and this is where we're going to go over into our second live demo, where we'll focus on scenarios of how we can use our interactive transfer readiness model to actively target students. Let's see. Let's make sure that the share is going to take back over. And did we get it? I think we did. All right. So just like before, CFEED has been developing several prototype applications to drive intervention development. They're all driven by data, predictive analytics, and we focus it on actionable populations. And inside of our populations, we need to know what type of problems we're trying to solve. And so in our concept application here, we're going to focus in on those students who are still in Valencia College. And those students, as they're getting ready to transfer, the closer they are to their Valencia degree, we know where those students are in their journey. In fact, we can identify of those students who are currently in Valencia, but have started the application process to UCF. They're signaling that they're getting ready to graduate, and we can also start to identify what they've applied for versus what they've taken in Valencia. So we'll note that there's 553 students that are in the transfer started, or they've applied for transfer into UCF. What we do see is that only 249 of those students are ready for their applied plan. 408 of them are not. So we're actually going to drill into this student population. We're going to look at that likely group of students. We're going to see that they're transfer ready. but we're going to look for those students that are not within their recommended list, which is the plan that they've applied for in UCF. And I'm going to highlight just one of these students. So the student we're looking at has had a great GPA with inside of Valencia. Their first term in Valencia was a 3.67, but their cumulative GPA is a 3.28. What we will see is that the student has applied for computer engineering in UCF. But if I look at the courses that the student has taken in Valencia, we're going to see that they've taken quite a few courses. And I believe in this course right up at the top, oh, here it is, Calculus, Geometry 1, they had a D. And they also had a C in college trigonometry. We know college engineering is a math-intensive course, or computer engineering is a math-intensive major. And this is a situation where the student may need some additional supports in taking extra courses. But what we also can see is that the student also has demonstrated interest in film, architecture, and criminal justice based on their course taking patterns. And this may be a situation to talk with the student around plan alignment for higher likelihood of success. So what our solution is providing is multiple scenarios of identifying how a student can succeed and facilitating action with that student to where a tailored path can be had, having actionable conversations both pre and post transfer with all of the parties involved, ultimately increasing student success. So with that, Ashton, I'm going to turn it back over to you to pull up the slide. And I think we are now at our question and answer.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We welcome any questions you might have, and I believe we're supposed to include those in the chat. And then, of course, if you have any additional questions after the conclusion of the webinar, or if you would like any additional information, we've included our contact information here on this slide. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you will engage us in the future and perhaps even join us for our second annual CFEED conference, which is planned for the fall of 2024. So just a quick plug there.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much. I have some questions I can start to rattle off. Wonderful.
Yes, please.
All right. So first I had a question here. Someone asked, how is all of this data handled?
Diana, do you want me to jump on that?
Sure, sure.
All right. So CFEED has an extensive governance and control process. And the very first thing that started with inside of CFEED was creating a data sharing agreement and partnership between the four institutions involved. And part of the initial forming of CFEED was working through all of the agreements between the institutions to create an appropriate legal and governance structure, so that way we could be compliant with FERPA controls or FERPA regulations, but also meet the objectives of using data to make informed decisions, right? So once the agreements were put in place, there are several pieces that go into making data available within inside of CFEED. First and foremost is the technology. The CFEED environment is using a Microsoft Azure cloud infrastructure to take in and ingest all of the available data. So having a very flexible and scalable environment where we can ingest and land data and make it secure is first and foremost. And so we've essentially used data lake technology to rapidly ingest data. Each of the institutions have shared specific sets of data. Valencia College and UCF has shared their student information systems, PeopleSoft at UCF and Banner at Valencia. For the K-12 districts, standardized data was viewed as being the most impactful. And so we take the state survey data that is currently shared with the Department of Education, and we ingest those same survey files into CFEED. And from there, CFEED then has a various set of tools to essentially curate variables and make it ready for analysis. So we transform it. So process, procedures, and technology is really how we pull it all together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. You kind of answered a follow-up question that we also had, but in case there's anything additional to add here, which agencies are the most important to engage in a data sharing agreement? Is it higher ed? Is it K-12? Is it all? Who should they be targeting?
Well, I can answer this one. You know, really, it's engagement from all of our institutions. You know, each of the institutions has specific data associated with the student journey, but we really require all of it to put that, you know, overall picture together. You know, each area gives us insights into, you know, particular places within the student journey that, you know, we can provide impacts for student success. But yeah, it's not a single institution. It's definitely all of our partners.
Great, thank you. A couple of other questions here. So how are interventions identified by the data tied to human resource support on the ground? If that makes sense.
I think I could give a good example of that one.
Yeah.
So as I said, I represent school district of Osceola County. So one of the benefits that I have, you know, being housed in my school district is I can take some of our work, such as the post-secondary readiness, and then I can break out and I can have conversations with the high school level district administration, and then start taking that information to the principals at each school. Recently, I actually had a date where the principals were having a meeting, and I was able to work in small groups with every high school principal in Osceola County and provide an updated list of every kid in their school that had a CFE readiness level. So now they know the kids that are ready to go, that could take that next step of dual enrollment in AP if they are not already doing so. And then they kind of also know the students that are maybe missing a few pieces that they need to address before they graduate. I also see another question below that. Are we using the FLE IDs? So within our secure data, we have a unique CFEED ID for each student to maintain the confidentiality. So when we're doing a project, there's never any identifiable information that ever comes out for a student. But to do some more of the specific work, you know, as I mentioned in Osceola, we also can match the FLE IDs with the CFEED ID. And so I can take that back and work securely within my district, so that those students' information are protected, but we can still provide next steps and supports for them. So I hope that that answers that next question as well.
Yeah, I'll also try to address the FLE ID as well. So the FLE ID is consistently used in K-12, but it is not consistently used in the college and university level. In fact, what we find in our data inside of the ecosystem is that when we track students across K-12 up into post-secondary, we don't always find the FLE IDs for those students. And so we have alternate mechanisms for identifying those students. And so to Ashton's point, we have developed our own internal student matching algorithms, which allow us to link students not just by FLE ID, but other identifiable information like name, gender, date of birth as being key joining perspectives. But what we are focused in on doing is tying that student journey across multiple perspectives and getting back to that bigger question of what institution is most important in the student journey. Well, with sharing data, we're able to now test the student experience beyond single institutions. And that's the biggest reason why data sharing is so important. The student journey spans decades. And many times those students are involved in multiple institutions, and each institution, without prior knowledge of the past pathways of that student, cannot provide the best services involved. And so what CFEED is able to do is bring most of that data together to then align it and inform each of the institutions of prior journey.
Great, thank you. A question here, how can organizations submit inquiries or requests to CFEED?
So we do have the contact information up on the screen. That's the best way to contact us. Right now, the data that we are using is the 4 institutions that we are aligned with currently. I do see another question that might be related to the one you just asked about utilizing our services in Broward County. And so although we are currently confined to the 4 institutions in our current ecosystem, CFEED is investigating whether expansion is something that we can do in the future. And we're talking with other school districts and other higher eds within Florida to see whether or not that's something that we can look to in the future. But we can share a lot of our findings, even the ones that we have in our ecosystem that utilize our data. It provides findings that can be utilized throughout the state in other institutions as well. But specific data tied to other institutions, we would have to expand a bit and incorporate them into the CFEED project.
So I'll add a couple things to what Diana just had. So students who end up being involved in Valencia and UCF, we have the perspective of all students that are in Valencia and UCF and have some prior institution tracking. So for example, students who go to UCF, we know that they could have possibly come from Broward County, and we would be able to track those students. And the same exists in the Valencia student information as well. While we won't have all of the K-12 experience, we will have specific information around student performance after they show up. And so that's something to pay attention to. And expanding on the broader potential for CFEED to be a service across the state, we did talk about that standardized ingestion of data, specifically the state surveys at the K-12 layer. And one of the discussions we've been having with lots of leaders and other interested parties with inside of the state of Florida is our performance or our post-secondary readiness prediction model literally uses Survey 5, the demographics information to identify a student, just who the student is, and then we use the transcript or the course taking file that allows us to look at their high school track record, and that actually is how we produce our predictions. And so we actually have models that are ready to take an input and can return back a result. And so we are starting to try to find ways that we can make CFEED available beyond just research projects.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we have time for just one last question. So which stakeholders are currently accessing CFEED / what training is provided to assist in data interpretation?
So right now, we have stakeholders within all 4 institutions. We have regular governance meetings with those stakeholders at various levels. And so within those governance meetings, we talk about the findings, questions, the future. We have a wide range of ways that we communicate. But in addition to that, we have infographics that are being created, briefs. we want to make sure that our findings are reaching, stakeholders from, those on the ground in the school, all the way up to the leadership, the presidents. And so we have various types of communications, that are really geared toward each of those groups. Of course, if anyone needs additional assistance with very targeted types of questions about specific findings, we're happy to set up, meetings, in person or over Zoom or Teams. So yeah, we want to make sure to get the word out and make sure that, our findings are being utilized to just help all students that we're able to.
Yeah, and I'll add in one additional thing just in terms of the scope of all the parties involved. So, from interpretation of data, we're engaging each of the institution's research and accountability teams. In fact, Ashton is also a member of SDOC's research team. Inside of taking action and creating intervention, we're engaging with all levels of student success, deans and practitioners and administrators inside of the institutions. And then additionally, the executives, the superintendents and presidents are also part of our governance structure and engaged in requesting and consuming information. In fact, Ashton, I think you were just recently presenting some of our post-secondary readiness data to Dr. Mark Shanoff, your superintendent. So we know that data gets out quite regularly to all levels, and we're engaging across all levels of the organizations.
Yep. The thing is too, is, our research, even if it's not for a specific organization that you're a part of, often will tie into kids all over. I mean, we did a chronic absenteeism study that was very comparable to kids 3,000 miles away in Arizona. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't done so already, scan that QR code, because every time we have a new project comes out, our communications team will usually pop some sort of an article or infographic out. So that LinkedIn page is a great way to stay current on all the great things that we're doing at CFEED.
Thank
right.
you so much, Ashton. I'm so glad you ended with that, Michael. Leadership, right? That's kind of how we started the opening remarks as well. Well, we have invited the CFEED team to present in a breakout session at our upcoming Access for All FCAN Summit. I wanted to just put the landing page for our summit here in the chat box and invite you all to check out our page. We're going to be building out our agenda and our breakout sessions. The deadline is December 11th, and we're hoping for a better than ever conference in May. We're going to be back in Orlando. We're expecting a sellout crowd. So please save the date and stay tuned. Hoping that we can have a really special session with CFEED at the end of the school year and learn even more from them. So thank you all for joining us today. It was an amazing hour. As I said in the chat, this will have a long shelf life. And we expect that email address to be blowing up, Diana. But thank you so much, Ashton, Michael, and Diana, for joining us today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.